What's up again, everybody? In the last video, I discussed my top 10 ramp and churn cards in the new meta, so now let's talk about some powerful control cards that we can all expect will make an impact after rotation. I'm going to rank these based on power level and flexibility just like the last group of cards, as well as if they will pan out favorably in the coming meta with the cards that we have left. Keep in mind this video is going up before any major spoilers from upcoming sets, so if there's a really powerful control option in an upcoming set, it will not be found on this list. Let's get started. Number 10 is Billy Club. Here's a card that will see play primarily as an energy fixer, but has some utility in the removal world as well. Sending something to the used pile 50% of the time is not groundbreaking, but it isn't something to scoff at either, especially if we're paying 3 for it, and particularly if we're going to see a bunch of Mr. Fix-Its out in the meta. Single target removal that also provides energy fixing is a good card to have around, so this makes the cut in the top 10. At number 9 is Batman. Batman has a clearly higher power level and it costs only 2 more than Billy Club. This also gives you a body in the field and it forces a full reroll of your opponent's board, which can be quite powerful, especially if you slap this on a collector team. At that point he becomes a 3 cost, which is the same as Billy Club, with a huge potential for board wiping on both your turn and your opponent's turn. That being said, Batman as a removal option only works if the when fielded abilities are able to trigger, and there's another card that might have something to say about that. At number 8 we have Rare Wrecker. Rare Wrecker edges both of these cards out in my mind because of its ability to shut down globals hard. Play Wrecker and nobody can energy fix. Play Wrecker and nobody can Heimdall. Play Wrecker and nobody can distract your characters back with a Kate Bishop global. The only way your opponent can counteract this effect is to remove Wrecker, blank him, or buy and field the character that they wish to use the global for. Action globals, however, stay shut down unless it's attached to some sort of a continuous die that's in the field. Very powerful against globals, which will always be a part of the game. It just doesn't sneak up too much higher than this. Number 7 is Green Devil Masque. So here's a Batman-like board reroll that costs 1 less and can sit out and wait to trigger. This hard counters board builder teams like sidekick teams, and it is extremely difficult to remove without causing it to trigger. The card can't be blanked by Shriek, and it isn't a when fielded effect, so you don't have to worry about these forms of counteraction when you're playing it. It is an action though, so expect to be sad when Scarlet Witch makes you reroll it. Still, it is strong and has less of a chance of counteraction by your opponent. At number 6 we have our good old friend Tabaxi Rogue. Yes, Tabaxi Rogue makes this list too. Why? Because unless our opponent is running Swarm, Heimdall, or for some reason is not running any ramp whatsoever, then this 3 cost character basically just gives us free damage. The biggest and most powerful forms of ramp, the Spot and Mimic, are both draw and prep or draw and roll mechanics, meaning that each time your opponent draws a die, they eat a point of damage, and that is per die based on Tabaxi Rogue's ruling. I plan to run this on several high-level teams just to see how it plays against the field, but I expect it to perform decently as it just hard counters those top 2 huge rampers. Cutting into the top 5, we have Kate Bishop. Not only is Kate Bishop a well-statted die for 3 with a strong when fielded ability, she also has the Blink Transmutation Global, which makes her a strong contender for the 8th card slot on every control team ever. This global has been hugely influential ever since Distraction existed way back in AVX, and I don't see it going away anytime soon, especially with things like Mr. Fix-It and buffed up sidekicks running around. Expect to see this on control and direct damage teams like it always is. Alright, now we're getting to the nuts and bolts staples of control within Dice Masters. At number 4 we have Scarlet Witch. I have Scarlet Witch ranked number 4 in this list, and she was almost the number 3 card, but she got edged out and bumped back to 4. Make no mistake though, she is still oppressive to anything resembling an action die, and will be even more so now that Parallax is rotated out and your only option to reroll action dice in the main step is Acererak. If you're planning on running any team that hinges on rolling and using action dice, then you need to have a plan to deal with Scarlet Witch. This makes her both influential as a control piece during the game and influential from a team building counter perspective. If you have not put something on your team to deal with her, then you're probably going to lose if you're looking to ramp or win via action dice. Sliding in front of Scarlet Witch at the number 3 spot is Blob. This card is a powerhouse. Without the luxury of Rip Hunter's chalkboard, this card becomes a turn 1 or turn 2 buy into a turn 3 roll, field, and shut down for any of your opponent's cards, action, or character. Removing Blob via the traditional method of attacking or blocking can be nearly impossible with Blob's defensive stats, as he's just going to block block whatever you attack with and soak that damage up. So unless you blank Blob with Shriek, you're going to need to use one of the previously mentioned removal methods to get rid of his blanking. Cards like Blob are going to see a big spike in power level thanks to the removal of Dwarf Wizard, Cold Gun, and Kryptonite from the modern meta, as you just can't blank them as easily. You only really have Shriek. I expect to see this card a lot in the coming months. And with that, we are down to 2. The second most powerful card just so happens to counter many of the control pieces on the list, as well as a bevy of win cons and powerful effects in the meta. Madame Masque prevents your opponent's when fielded effects from triggering, which is good on so many levels. We talked about the Blob being an early buy to shut down something for your opponent. Well, this is an early counter to the Blob. By buying and fielding this first, your opponent's Blob does not have a trigger, so they've sunk 4 energy that they don't have anything to do with except have a really nice beefy blocker, I guess. This card also eats collector's teams for breakfast, as all of those collector targets are when fielded effects. This stops Shriek from triggering and text wiping. This stops Batman from rerolling your board. It's crazy. This card's so strong. This will be a staple for most teams going forward unless the new sets shy away from the when fielded effects in favor of win attacks or new keyword abilities, stuff like that. And at number 1, of course, we have Shriek. She's been a staple. She will continue to be a staple. That's just how it is. She becomes even more of a staple with the rotation of the text wiping actions and Dwarf Wizard. She is the end-all be-all of control pieces, and unless they release a counter to the ultimate counter in an upcoming set, I don't expect her to go anywhere. Yes, she doesn't blank actions, but you have other things for that. Yes, she can get countered by Madame Masque if you don't get her out first, but her existence on your team is a threat at all times, and it makes your opponent have to go for something like Madame Masque first, so that they don't have to worry about their characters, their win cons, their ramp being blanked by Shriek. So there you have it. There are my top 10 control cards that we can expect to see in the new meta. What cards did I miss? What cards do you think I should have added to this list? How would you rearrange this list, and do you think that Madame Masque is more powerful than Shriek? Give me some good reasoning in the comments below, and maybe you change my mind. As I always say, everybody, don't do drugs.